So Naylssa Smith is in China right now, and Naylssa Smith almost started a freaking brawl in her first game in China, which is like madness.
Naylssa Smith assaulted players in China and faced instant regret. It's a headline no one saw coming, and yet here we are. Naylssa Smith, fresh off the plane in China, should have been laying low, building her overseas reputation quietly, but that's far from what happened. In her very first game, Smith's frustration boiled over.
We are looking in her first game, Naylssa Smith starting a freaking brawl in China. And like that's something that is just, it's mental. Like she's lasted one game. People are like, oh, she's not gonna last long over there. I mean, fair.
Triggering a shocking brawl that silenced the crowd, stunned her team, and set the internet on fire. What started with a minor shove spiraled quickly as Smith threw the ball at an opponent's knee, then hurled it again, turning a small scuffle into an international spectacle.
Someone just said, don't act dumb. 14 pushed her first. 14 did not push. There's like two players that are kind of tussling with each other. Like kind of an overly aggressive box out.
Fans erupted, some booing, others watching in disbelief as the fight turned the court into pure chaos. This single moment might be the one that defined Smith's career, not for points scored or rebounds grabbed, but for losing control on foreign turf.
I'll say it, like, sometimes it's maybe not Naylssa Smith's fault. For lack of a better word, stuff seems to follow her.
Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, who's making headlines for her skills and focus, is looking more like the role model the WNBA needs.
Caitlin Clark has done is grown the WNBA exponentially. She did in 5 weeks what would have taken 5 years. And as it pertains to draft viewership, she did in 5 days what would have taken 5 years.
Smith's actions don't just put her contract in jeopardy, they risk her entire career. And now, as the backlash unfolds, Smith is learning the hard way that sometimes one impulsive move can take everything away. In an instant, Naylssa Smith's debut game overseas became the most talked about moment in sports.
Because I think if she stays with the Fever, she is out of the league, and she's out of the league within 2 years.
Here she was, a WNBA star heading to China to boost her earnings, but instead of settling in, she chose to make a scene that's now causing serious fallout.
I don't know if she got aggressively at her leg to start this whole crap, but at the end of the day, look, no punches were swung. It is what it is, but like, for the first game, she didn't even last her first game.
During a routine play, tensions escalated when Smith took a hit, a typical push that most players would shrug off, but not Naylssa. In a split second, she retaliated by throwing the ball directly at her opponent, sparking a reaction that was pure chaos. Her opponent threw the ball back, and Smith didn't stop there. She threw it again, but this time aimed straight at the player's face, turning the moment into a full-scale brawl that got everyone watching. The audience was left in shock, team officials on both sides were scrambling, and even the referee made a quick exit as the court descended into mayhem. In a matter of moments, Smith's choice turned a standard game into a global spectacle.
So we just can't stop talking about Naylssa Smith. The big problem here is that Naylssa Smith just keeps almost bringing herself back into the story, back into the news.
Something that not only embarrassed her, but also painted a troubling picture of the WNBA to an international audience. With each heated reaction, Smith's outburst only fueled the backlash, as fans, league officials, and media outlets began questioning whether her career was headed for disaster.
There is nobody interesting in the WNBA past or present except for Caitlin Clark. They've all shown themselves to be sexist, racist, petty, ridiculous.
And with high-profile players like Caitlin Clark representing the WNBA with focus and skill, Smith's impulsive actions just highlighted the difference, making her seem more like a liability than a star.
Caitlin Clark may not win titles, but the fact that she's doing what she's doing and at a very high level, it's now commonplace where she'll go for 26 and 12. I mean, those are great numbers for any player, no matter how long you've been in the league.
As the dust settled, the consequences of Smith's actions were already starting to stack up. The Chinese Basketball League, known for strict conduct policies, doesn't take these kinds of incidents lightly. There's talk of hefty fines, suspensions, or even an outright expulsion from the league.
Touch wood, everything's good. She played well. I do have to say, Naylssa Smith did play well in the game. I watched clips. I watched what I could of the game. She did play well, but she should play well. It's the CBA.
A move that could send Smith packing back to the US before her season even begins. And if that weren't enough, this meltdown isn't just damaging her reputation in China, it's making waves back home in the WNBA. Her team.
What Caitlin Clark does is kind of simple, really. She shows up at games, she signs autographs, she talks to little girls wearing jerseys, she smiles to the crowd, and then here's the most important thing. She competes like a maniac. I mean like a maniac.
The Indiana Fever and a growing number of fans are fed up, with some even calling for her to be dropped altogether. Smith's career, once filled with potential, is now at risk of being overshadowed by this single reckless act.
But the reality is that to be a member of the Fever, to play in a big market, you can be a big fish in a small market. You can be a hooper. In fairness, you don't average 15 and 10 if you've got no talent.
And while Caitlin Clark is celebrated for her dedication and focus, representing the future of women's basketball, Smith's behavior is a stark contrast, casting a shadow not only over her career, but also over the league itself.
I've got the fever. I can't help it. I can't stop watching. I can't stop talking about the impact Caitlin Clark is having on game after game after game.
The pressure is mounting, and the question now is whether Smith can salvage her career or if she's set on a path that could leave her sidelined for good.
This is a girl that came in and garnered more attention than others in the game. That's what happened. It's that simple.
We got to give Caitlin Clark more respect, because at this point, the goalpost keeps getting moved. And if they continue to play like they're playing, the Fever are going to make a run in the playoffs. And that might sound crazy for me to say, but this team is starting to gel.
As the story spread, the backlash from Naylssa Smith's on-court incident reached new heights. Fans, teammates, and media alike were astounded that a rising WNBA star would risk everything on a heated impulse.
Caitlin Clark has been the best thing, the most dominant thing to happen to the WNBA ever. Remember, there's been good players come out of college, but nobody really cared. We'd seen it. Nobody really cared.
Smith's frustration during that one play may have been understandable to some extent, but launching into a full-fledged assault shocked those watching. Especially since she was representing both herself and her league in a foreign country. With each replay of the clip, Smith's actions appeared more reckless, each throw and shove underscoring a loss of control that now overshadows her talent and stats.
One of the most frustrating things is that she is a very talented player. Her talent didn't match her production.
Her 21 points and 10 rebounds that night, completely forgotten in the wake of her outburst. The Chinese league, meanwhile, is reportedly weighing its options, and none of them look good for Smith. Financial penalties are all but certain, and a suspension or even outright expulsion from the league is on the table, consequences that would leave a lasting stain on her record.
Caitlin Clark is the only player in the history of the WNBA to achieve those numbers or better.
For a player who went overseas to secure a financial boost, this incident could now end up costing her far more than she intended. And back in the US, the Indiana Fever is faced with a tough choice. Smith's aggressive behavior has stirred resentment among fans.
I think Caitlin Clark is doing the right thing, rising above all of the crap that she's had to endure. The amount of fouls committed on Caitlin Clark higher than any other player, flagrant fouls committed on Caitlin Clark higher than any other player. Caitlin Clark was worried about playing the game, and that is why she got Rookie of the Year. She was not worried about the BS.
Some of whom are openly calling for her to be traded. For a team already working to establish its reputation, Smith's unpredictability could be too much of a risk to keep on the roster.
This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league. And she's a rookie, targeted by society, targeted by her looks, targeted by her reputation, targeted by the disrespect that they've shown to the WNBA. She said, no, they're expecting this rookie class to be perfect. This rookie class isn't even one of the best rookie classes in the last 10 years.
In the midst of this controversy, comparisons to Caitlin Clark are inevitable. Clark, a true professional and rising star, is lauded for her composure, focus, and work ethic, setting a standard that players like Smith are now measured against. Where Clark's dedication to the game serves as a beacon for what women's basketball could become, Smith's outburst is seen as a liability, reinforcing negative stereotypes the WNBA is working hard to break. For Smith, the stakes couldn't be higher. She's in the center of a storm that could alter her career forever, facing not just public criticism, but real-world consequences that could define her legacy.
If she would not have joined the WNBA, these numbers would not be the way that they are with or without her, right? So it's not about Caitlin Clark not being in the finals or being in the finals. It's the fact that Caitlin Clark is in the league that is allowing other teams to still have these pretty decent ratings in the finals.
Caitlin Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA.
As the fallout intensified, Naylssa Smith's actions began rippling beyond the court, raising questions about her future not only in China, but also in professional basketball as a whole. The international incident has sparked conversations across the sports world, with analysts pointing out how one bad decision could permanently alter her career. For the WNBA, already struggling with visibility and pay disparities, Smith's behavior adds yet another hurdle. The league is desperate to cultivate players who exemplify professionalism and commitment values embodied by rising stars like Caitlin Clark. Clark has shown unwavering dedication, representing the league with poise and discipline, while Smith's actions in China seem to embody the very behaviors the WNBA is striving to move past. Beyond image issues, the financial impact on Smith could be devastating. While she initially went to China to supplement her income due to the WNBA's lower salaries, this incident could have the opposite effect, cutting off her chance for overseas contracts altogether. The Chinese league isn't known for leniency, especially with foreign players who cause public disturbances. The threat of being suspended or even banned looms large, and if that happens, Smith will not only lose her international income, but may also struggle to find teams willing to take the risk of signing her back home. Her Indiana Fever team, already facing a rocky season, has to consider if Smith's potential isn't overshadowed by her unpredictability and public backlash, with fans increasingly calling for her removal. Meanwhile, this scandal highlights a deeper issue within the WNBA, the lack of financial security that drives players to overseas leagues in the first place. Stars like Clark represent what the league hopes to build upon, athletes who can lift the league's reputation and attract bigger contracts without resorting to playing abroad. Yet with players like Smith turning to international gigs, it's clear the WNBA's pay gaps leave athletes in a tough spot. If the league doesn't address these disparities, it risks losing more players to foreign teams. Or worse, watching careers like Smith's derail over off-court controversies. In the end, Smith's incident is more than just a personal crisis. It's a stark reminder of the challenges the WNBA faces in retaining talent and building a legacy. As the dust settles, the reality of Naylssa Smith's situation couldn't be clearer. What started as a heated moment on the court has unraveled into a career-altering disaster that could follow her long after she leaves China. The consequences of her actions have cast a shadow not only on her own future, but also on how WNBA athletes are viewed worldwide. In contrast, players like Caitlin Clark continue to build their legacies through talent and focus, standing as role models for the next generation.
Caitlin Clark is becoming the best player, not because she's white, because she's that good. She's having Larry Bird impact. She's been the driving force of the hottest team in the entire league, despite her record turnovers. Why? Because she's that good. She's legit good. She's colorblind good. She's guilt-free good. She's apolitically good.
Smith's outburst serves as a powerful reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control in the spotlight, especially when representing more than just oneself. The road ahead for Smith is uncertain, with her reputation at risk and her future with both her overseas team and the Indiana Fever hanging by a thread. She faces the decision of either learning from this incident or watching her potential slip away. This saga has underscored the challenges WNBA players face, from the lure of higher pay overseas to the pressures of staying disciplined on foreign soil. For Smith, this moment will define her career one way or another, a pivotal lesson in the importance of self-control and the lasting impact of even a single lapse in judgments.
What's a lesbian look like? Angry. You got the angry African-American lesbian who just can't handle somebody coming into their league as a white girl with a bunch of attention.
If you're ready to dive into the latest and greatest moments in women's basketball, you're in the right place. Here on WNBA Original, we cover everything from breaking news to inspiring stories, bringing you closer to the action and the players who make it all happen. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll always be the first to know what's happening on and off the court. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more from WNBA Original.